jump back into things. We're on, we believe, the exclusive right to sell. It should be about 2/3 of the way in the back of your packages.
After the seller's met?
Um,
I think I left it in the same order. Oh,
Yeah.
not. Nope.
And we got down to, where we end up? Commission, we finished that?
I think so.
So default is where I don't have
Oh,
it.
we didn't do default? I thought we did default.
I don't have any notes on it, but that doesn't mean that we didn't
Okay.
do it.
You got it over there?
I'm thinking, I probably do. Just have to get on it.
Should have it.
All I got is seller's disclosure.
Take a package.
I think I have an extra one here.
Take the package.
You don't need a whole pen, this is just an extra. Here you go.
See that nice little book? That's exactly what we're going towards.
That's what
I
I've
think
got
that's a
in
good
here,
idea.
not for yours though. Yeah, because I've only been to the one. I haven't been to
We're gonna do it so everybody's got a nice and neat book they can start with at the beginning and go from there. All right, we left off on number 5. If a sale is not consummated because of the seller's refusal to perform, then full commission shall be due and payable upon such refusal. If a sale is not consummated because of the buyer's failure to perform, the deposit made is forfeited. Seller agrees that blank percent of the deposit not to exceed the full commission shall be retained by the broker in full payment for services rendered in the transaction. What does that mean? That whole paragraph.
They're still paying you if they decide to back out.
If the seller backs out, you have the right to collect a commission, right? Doesn't mean you have to collect a commission. And we talked a little bit about this before. Why would a seller back out of a transaction?
They didn't get the job they thought they were going to move.
Okay? In that
They
case,
can't,
go ahead.
I was gonna say they can't find the home they want.
So that one bothers me a little. That one I can accept a little bit better.
Right, because you shouldn't have done that prepared to put it on the market if you had no clue.
And it's not just putting it on the market, remember, it's going all the way to
Right,
accepting
right,
an
right,
offer on
exactly.
somebody
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and upsetting somebody else's
Right.
life.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay? So, or, let's talk complete extremes. Seller decides he doesn't want to sell because he doesn't like the buyer. Wrong religion, wrong race, wrong whatever.
Discrimination.
And I'm sure that's happened in the past.
Right.
Now, I gotta tell you, if that one happened, I'd probably stick somebody with a commission right after I dropped them as a client,
Right.
okay? And you will drop them as a client, am I clear on that?
Yes.
Okay. The other extreme is, you know, it's an old couple. One of them dies.
Right, now that.
Doesn't want to move out of the house at that point. I don't think I'd probably stick them on a commission on something like that, okay?
It's your best judgment.
You know, so what this says is you have the opportunity to collect a commission. It doesn't mean you have to collect a commission if the seller, you know, screws up. Don't rip apart the package. Take the whole package. Thank you. What if the buyer screws up? Where that blank is, what are you putting in there?
Half.
He says half. You can go from 0 to 100. I'll give you that hint.
Right, when I asked, how many cents they're buying.
Now, I do things, you guys know, I do things differently. I put 0 in there.
I guess
Okay.
it all depends on who I'm working with. If I think that they're going to be a good resource in the future, then I'll do everything to keep them as happy as possible. If they're a total pain in the butt, they're never going to refer me, then.
Well, but again, remember at this point, this is the buyer killing the deal, right? The second line here,
And then, right. And this is.
If the buyer kills the deal, I'd like to think I'm still gonna have the listing, right?
Right.
So guess where I can make my commission? On that next deal. So this is saying the percentage, and this is where people get confused. This percentage or this line is how much we're keeping. So if I put it at 0, I'm not keeping anything. And what I do a lot of times, I use that to my advantage when I'm on a listing. I'll tell people, you know, sometimes agent will put in 50% or they'll put in 100% where they're keeping the whole commission. I'm the complete opposite. I'm not gonna take any of that commission because I want to sell your house and I'll get my commission when I sell it. So again, who looks like the good guy? I do. Now, having said that, this is where I also say to them, you have to explain a little bit because they're going to go, what does that mean? Well, what that means is if the buyer defaults on their purchase agreement, let's say there's a mortgage contingency and they get through that. There's an inspection contingency, they get through that, and then the buyer decides they don't want the house anymore. This says you're entitled to their earnest money. But the odds are, and this is exactly how I say it, the odds are you're not going to end up getting that earnest money because at the end of the day, if the buyer is going to go after their money or they want to get their money back, and we get into a disagreement on it, you can't sell the house until the earnest money dispute is settled. We're not here to collect earnest money. We're here to sell your home. You're better off calling them a few choice names and let them go on their way. And that's exactly how I say it. I got served yesterday on a lawsuit, because that's what I get here. Not because of me though, you guys. On an earnest money from, it was kind of ironic, exactly a year to the day, April 23rd of 2014 this deal goes back to. And now I've got to figure out how to solve this problem. So, you need to set the table for your clients early on, not after the deal falls apart. The seller, look at number 6, what's an option? Don't read it, just tell me what do you think that means? Okay, you guys want me to tell you what I think it means?
Flat rate or percentage?
No. You've ever heard the term lease with the option to buy? That's where it's coming in, okay? The seller agrees that the commission will be due payable to the broker if the seller enters into an option to purchase during the term of this contract or the protection period as provided upon the consummation of the sale pursuant to the option. If the option is exercised and consummated, the agreed upon commission will be paid to the realtor broker and the option amount. Very rarely is that going to come into play. But what that means is I write an offer and it's a lease option and they have a year to buy the house. Okay, they're going to rent it for a year or lease it for a year, and then they have this option to buy it. Now, why do you think somebody would do that, a lease option?
Something with their credit and trying to fix it.
Correct. In most cases, that's what it is. Their credit's not good and they need time to do damage control and build their credit back up. So, if normally, as an agent, you get paid for the lease, okay? And then when the option kicked in, you'd be able to get paid a commission on the option if it's, you know, factored in there. Now, like I say, you're not going to come across those that many. Wendy is excellent at that. I mean, she's written books on options and rentals and stuff like that. So, if I can't answer it, I'm pretty confident she can. All right. So, if you have questions on it, come see one of us. Consideration, negotiation. The seller and broker acknowledge that they have negotiated the consideration contracted hereunder between themselves and that the commission is paid by the seller in consideration of the services to be performed by the realtor, and commission to be paid was not fixed, controlled, recommended, or maintained by any other person or entity not a party to this contract. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. You're at a listing appointment and somebody says, and this is kind of funny because I just had an email sent to me on one of my clients, by one of my clients. Somebody says, what's the commission? What can't you say?
The state standard or whatever the typical.
Around this area, the commission is. Okay? Why can't you say that?
Price fixing.
That's considered price fixing. You can clearly say, our office policy is, my policy is, but you understand what it's saying here, by any other person or entity not a party to this contract. It's clearly saying, you guys can negotiate whatever you want on your commission. But it has to be our policy, your policy. What's our office policy on a listing?
6%.
6%. If somebody says, will you do it for less, can you?
Yes.
Yeah, but you start doing that, and someone's gonna put a stop to it.
Can you make that call by yourself? Who needs to make that call?
You.
That would be me. Confirmed.
Or if we work with a team,
And even that, if you're working with Mike, now, does Mike come to me and talk about commission? No. Because at the end of the day, remember, commission affects who? What you guys take. It affects the broker and it affects you guys too. It doesn't affect the broker, forget being on a team, an individual agent. If Dave's already paid his $18,000 or what his cap is for the year, it really doesn't affect the broker, right?
Right.
Because we've got all the money we're going to get out of him. So at that point, it's not quite as important. But here's the flip side. When did you start this?
Late December.
December? Let's say it's November and he's capped. And he takes a listing. And he takes it for 5%. It's going to affect us as the office?
Yeah.
Why?
No.
5%, he still owes.
Not gonna close until the next.
Right.
That's the issue.
Yeah.
It's not going to close until he's into his next contract. Okay, so yes, it does affect us. Okay, unless he closed, unless he sold it and closed it before he flipped on his contract. So if there's an issue, if somebody, again, I get sarcastic when I say this, but there's some truth to it. If somebody says, is your commission negotiable? Sure, I can charge you 7, but I'm going to charge you 6. I mean, you better know that who your client is, and you don't want to come across completely as, smart aleck. See how I did that?
It was a good catch.
I know. You want to make sure that, and I have used that line with people. Another line on a commission is, well, somebody said that they'd do it for 5% or 4%. How about this line back to that client? If they're so willing to, give away their commission, how do you think they're going to fight for your money when it comes time to negotiate? That's a pretty powerful line. And most people, if you explain it that way, I get it. I'm going to make X amount, but I'm willing to give that away, so I really don't care when it comes to yours. I'm not going to work as hard. Okay? Now, I'm not going to sit here and say I've never taken a reduced commission, because I have. All right? But now let's say I do say, okay, Dave, you wanted to do a 5% commission. How does that get split?
I would usually offer the 3% to the buying agent
Right.
because they're gonna be more willing to show it.
That is the correct answer with a little caveat. You will offer the 3%. Our office policy is if you take 5 or less than 6, you have to give away 3. All right? And then someone just brought one to my attention the other day, and I had to make a phone call to an agent in the office and tell her you have to change it. She had it down at 2.5%. I go, no, our policy is 3. So I need to follow up to see that it was changed. If you take a 4% commission, you might as well have said you're working for free, because our policy at that point is gonna kick in and say, we're gonna get paid as if it was a 6% commission. So in other words, we're taking that 3%, whatever that money was, and figuring out what we would have gotten out of that. So 3% on a typical split, you guys are giving, paying the office 30%, right? 70-30 split. If you do the math, you're pretty much working for free.
I would owe you guys money right now.
It could be on some of them. So, I mean, I'm not gonna say we're gonna jack somebody up, because a lot of times, I just need to know what's going on. And what's pretty interesting now is Chris in the title company, if she sees a screwy scenario with commission, she will come to me and say, did they have permission? So, if you're giving away commission on every deal, the problem isn't your client, the problem is you. I mean, you're not strong enough with your scripts and dialogues to figure out what you're doing differently. And a lot of it is literally, when you're doing this sheet, remember how I said this is the last, pretty much this is the last form I want you to use, to present. I don't even bring up commission in my presentation unless they bring it up. And probably 70% of the time, they don't even bring it up. So when I'm doing this form, I've got it filled out, I just keep going, our commission 6%, and I just move on to the next thing. Now, if you get in there and say our commission 6%, and you pause like that,
Right.
you're giving them an opportunity to, say, I 6%, that's ridiculous. It's how you present things. Kidoki, multi-list cooperation. The seller agrees, or the seller acknowledges that the services of the multi-listing service and the offering of cooperation and compensation by other participants has been fully explained, and the realtor broker is authorized to multi-list the property, and the cooperating broker may represent the buyer even though paid by the realtor. This, when I got into business, yes, there was always a multi-list when I got in. Prior to that, you guys realize back in 70s maybe, there probably wasn't the multi-list in effect, okay? It was whoever had the listings really was in control. So I can tell you when I got into it, there really weren't computers to get listings. It was out of the books. Clients had to, which was actually kind of a cool thing. Clients had to come into the office and look through the books to see the listings. So, but that's going back when dinosaurs roamed the earth. Going back to what Dave said earlier about, the reason we make sure that we're giving away 3%, it's in the client's best interest if we give away 3%, okay? Because if there's 10 homes that are identical, all priced the same, okay? 9 of them are offering out 3%, and the 10th one's offering out 2 or 2.5%. Which home's gonna get shown last? The lower commission. It's human nature. You guys, and I don't care who you are, want to sell, you'd like to sell the most expensive house to make the most commission, right? So, now, your fiduciary duty to your client says, you have to make sure that you're showing any and all houses that fit their criteria. If somebody's only offering out 2.5%, can you ask for more? Can you go back to the listing agent and ask for more commission? Who says yes? Who says no? You're not saying anything over there.
Is it already, but it's already.
It's already in the MLS that they're offering out 2.5% or 2%.
So I think no, but I'm a newbie.
Get it from your buyer.
The answer is, can you ask the listing site for more commission?
Yes.
Okay? I want to see a show of hands. Who says yes? Who says no? You're both kind of right and you're both kind of wrong. Or you're all kind of right and you're all kind of wrong. I'm going to say yes, you can, but when do you have to do it?
In the purchase agreement.
You have to call the agent up and say, you're only offering out 2%. Would you pay me 3%? And if they say no, and this is something we'll talk more about on your buyer's agency, do you have to show your client that home?
Yes. Fiduciary responsibility.
What you have to do, let's say on your buyer's agency contract, and we don't have that in there, there's a place in there that talks about your buyer is going to pay you 3%. Okay? Now you heard what I said, your buyer is going to pay you. But we also say in that buyer's agency contract, you'll get a credit for whatever else you, for whatever is being offered away. So if 2%, okay, buyer Dave, you said, you know, we agreed that you'd pay 3% commission here, and we'd get a credit for pretty much, in most cases, 3%. This one's only going to pay 2%. Do you want me to show you that home? And if so, are you willing to pay the 1%? Now, that's bad business, okay, what I'm saying.
Right.
Bottom line is what I would say, Dave, there's this house out there that's 2%. You know what? I'm going to show it to you. And by our buyer's agency contract, in theory, you would owe me that extra %. I'm not going to stick you with that, Dave. But what I really would like from you, you know, since I'm doing this, I'm sure you got some friends that'll be looking for a home. Can you make sure you send them my name? You turned a bad situation into good situation, and they're walking out of there thinking, this is kind of cool, he's a good guy. Okay? So it's how you present things to people. All right? But our office policies, we offer out 3%. Going back to the beginning, I want Dave to answer this. I want to see if any of you other guys answer this. We talked about this before. What do you guys get paid for? We talked about this either last week or 2 weeks ago. Since you two aren't here. What was that, Kavita?
Marketing.
You get paid to market their home. Okay, that's what you're getting paid for. And if you don't believe me, if you go into number 1, you can see that somewhere up top. The seller authorizes the realtor broker to provide the multi-list service such information as they may require, including but not limited to the timely notice of status change in this contract and sales information, including selling price and terms upon the acceptance of an offer to purchase or any time after closing. In other words, the terms, we've talked about that in the past. You're going to offer out cash, conventional, FHA, VA, whatever it is, those are the terms. The multiple listing service is authorized to disseminate the information according to its rules and regulation. The sellers and realtor broker release the multi-list service from any liabilities for errors and omissions in the listing information disseminated. And that's an important one, because I'm sure there's been lawsuits that have been, agents have been saved because of that. If somebody makes a mistake, the multi-list isn't going to be blamed. If you put the information wrong or whatever, it's not the multi-list fault, necessarily. The seller or broker release the okay, let's start with that. The seller authorizes the realtor broker to offer cooperation as provided by the multiple listing service, either through the multiple listing service or otherwise, and to offer compensation to the cooperating broker. It is understood that the compensation paid to a cooperating broker will be paid from the commission due the broker and will be in the amount of blank as stated on the multi-list form or otherwise agreed in writing. So what's going in there?
6%.
Huh? Huh? Huh?
6%.
3%. 6% goes up top on number 4. 3% comes down into number 8. We are offering out 3% to the other side. And make sure when you're explaining that people, and believe me, they ask this question a lot. So it's 9%? No. It's 6% with 3 of it going to the other side. All right. Ooh, here's one for you. There's times where you're gonna list low-end homes, well, potentially list low-end homes. I mean, there's times out there that if you guys go on the multi-list, you'll see $1,000, $10,000 homes.
Well, I thought you were talking like, I'm about to list mine, I think. And
No,
I was
no.
thinking like, I'm under 100,000, is it
No.
called?
See, but that's still a decent commission, okay? $1,000 or $10,000 home, commission's nothing,
Nothing.
right?
Like, not even worth your gas.
No, and you're right. I mean, there was a time when the market was terrible. There were a lot of hot homes, and you probably still find them, where the commission was higher than the sales price.
Huh.
Okay? Because there were these $1,000 homes. No one's going to go show a home for 3% of $1,000,
Right,
right?
right,
If my memory's right, that's $30, is it?
right. Well, yeah.
Start up your car costs you more than that.
Right.
So HUD at times was offering away $1,250 commissions.
Really. To make up for certain.
So there might be times where you're offering out a flat fee on a commission where it might be $500 and then getting rich, but it's certainly far and away more than 3%. All right, so in that line, you might put in a flat fee, certainly higher than the 3%. Okay? Agency. Seller acknowledges that the broker is explaining to the seller this broker's policy on agency, disclose to the seller the different types of real agency relationship, and the broker will be acting as the agent for the seller. Receipt of an agency disclosure acknowledged by the seller. Remember, how did this whole thing start? What's the first thing you're going over whenever you meet with a seller or a buyer? Agency. So you're explaining the different types of agency. Seller further grants that the broker the authorization to act as a disclosed dual agent in the event any licensee of the realtor broker procures a buyer who has contracted with the broker as a buyer's agent. Now, we've talked a little bit about designated agency, and we're going to talk more about that again for you guys that haven't been here. If you list a property and you find a buyer, are you in dual agency?
If you get the form signed.
If you get,
you gotta have it
yeah,
on.
All right, let me back that up a little bit. That wasn't quite the answer I was looking for, but it was the right answer. Whose choice is it to decide how they're represented? The agent or the buyer or seller?
Buyer, seller.
Correct. So why wouldn't you get, now when you say the form, what form are we talking about?
dual agency.
Okay. Why, let's say you had a
Dual agency
buyer.
agreements, yeah.
Okay, let's say you had a buyer. Why wouldn't you get that form showing your listing? Why wouldn't you get that form signed?
Off the bat or when you're showing them your listing?
Showing them your listing?
Trying to hide it? I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, not quite the answer I was looking for there. Because agents think, well, I'm just representing the seller. If I came to your house, not your house, but your listed house, you had it listed, and I came to you as a buyer, you're going to explain agency to me, right?
Yeah, that you work for the seller, yeah.
Okay, I work for the seller, but, because there's a big but right there. I didn't think about that, I made it funny.
You can't disclose everything to that person.
As the buy until, yes, Debbie did this class with us.
I can also
You
represent
can
you.
show them around
But I
that
could-
point things out.
Yes. So until, I don't know how she explained it, as bluntly, not as bluntly as like, until we go into this agreement, now would you like she explained it as showing
Well,
how.
I'm not sure how she explained it, but I'm going to explain it to you the way I want it explained. Okay? How's that?
Okay.
If you meet me at that house, you better go over agency before you even take me through that house. Okay? And once you go over agency, you're then going to ask them, how do you, the best I can do in this house is what? You have 3 different types of agency: seller, buyer, dual. What's the best agency I can be in as the agent at that point?
Dual.
Dual is I'm already representing the seller, right? But it's my choice. You have to explain agency to me. And once you explain agency to me, don't you think 99.9% of the people are going to want some representation? And they're not going to just say, screw me, you take care of your seller. Right? So it's very clear. Once you explain agency properly to somebody, you better be going into a dual agency situation with them at that point. Does that make sense? Because what you're saying, if you're not, I'm just watching out for my seller and I really don't care about you, Mr. Buyer. Now, the only way you guys get into a dual agency situation is what?
You have a buyer and a seller in the same deal.
Correct. You have the seller and the buyer on the same piece of property. How do we, or let me say, rephrase that, how do I, because of you guys, get into a dual agency?
Any 2 of the 240 of us working together on the same.
Correct. If you list the property and Dave brings a buyer,
Gotcha.
I'm in a dual agency scenario. The broker and again, my trick question of the day, who's the broker here?
You're the broker, right?
The entity is the broker. Keller Williams.
Keller Williams.
I'm the, but since the entity can't talk, the supervisory broker is me. Okay? So the entity and myself are always in a dual agency situation. Okay? So what this form is saying, seller further grants that the broker, and this is it's kind of deceiving the way it is. It truly should just say broker. It shouldn't say realtor. Because if it, I'm going to read this, and you guys then tell me it's a true statement. Just listen to what I'm saying, don't look. Would this be a true statement? Seller further grants that the realtor the authorization to act as a disclosed dual agent in the event any licensee of the broker procures a buyer who is connected with the broker as the buyer's agent. Would that be a true statement?
Not if you use realtor.
Right.
That's correct.
Right.
If I use realtor in that first one and I take out broker, because it really shouldn't say realtor / broker there. Because you guys aren't in a dual agency.
Yeah.
The only one that's in the dual agency is me. All right? Realtor authorizes broker to show potential buyers properties other than the seller's property and provides buyer with information on selling prices in the area. Why is that in there? And what does that mean?
The buyer may not like the house that you're showing, but you're still a realtor.
That's exactly right. I could have your property listed at 123 Main Street, and I could have your property listed at 124 Main Street. What this is saying to you is, I've got the authorization. I'm not just showing your home. I have your permission to show every other home that could be right next door, especially if I have it listed. Okay?
Right.
Now remember, anytime something's on paper, there's a good bet somebody sued somebody.
Over it.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why it's in there.
Very true.
And there's probably a really good bet that I was involved in that lawsuit. So what it just says is, I have your permission, and just realize, it's not even permission,
not
just
working with
realize,
you, right?
yeah, there's more people out there.
Everybody's taste is different.
Exactly. Seller represents the title property to be good and marketable, and seller will execute and deliver a warranty deed, land contract, or other instrument of assignment or conveyance that shall be required. By agreement on subsequent purchase agreements, seller will furnish an owner title insurance policy with standard exceptions. Any deed required shall have full covenants of warranty and conveyance thereunder, and shall be free of all encumbrance, liens, restrictions, easements, reservations, covenants of record, example, special assessments. Basically, A, they're saying they have the right to sell the house, and B, there's no liens on the property. And if there's liens, you're gonna have to take care of them. All right? Showing signs. Broker is hereby authorized to photograph the property and publish such photographs, retain a key, and cause a sign to be erected on the property, and remove all other for sale signs. Realtor broker shall have access to the building on the property for purpose of showing the same at reasonable hours. Somebody says, well, I've been showing my house for sale by owner. I want to keep the sign up. No can do. Not with this paragraph in there. Okay? And reasonable hours. What are reasonable hours? And again, I'm not sure there's a definition of that.
Subjective.
You know, 9 to 7, to me, is probably reasonable hours. You know, if somebody says, I want you to show at 10 to 11 on Saturdays, those are probably not reasonable hours.
My son was 1 to 4 Monday through Friday, and then 4 to 7 Saturday and Sunday.
And again, this is where you as an agent have to decide, is it worth your headache? If that's what they're limiting you. They really are. Advertising. The broker is authorized to place the property information on the internet and otherwise advertise the property for sale. Yes, that line was not in there when I got into the business, because there was no internet. Seller shall indemnify and hold harmless broker and broker's agents and sub-agents from any and all liability for any reason as a result of injury to persons or damage to loss of property arising out of a showing of seller's home pursuant to this listing. Remember, even though that's in there, you can still get sued. You can get sued for anything. Doesn't mean they're gonna win, but you can get sued. I'll give you a couple different things. There was a lady in Birmingham, older lady, that was showing a house. I don't know if it was an open house or not. Standing at the top of the stairs, fell down stairs, died. Agent. That was probably, I'd say 5 years ago, but my sense of timing is so far off now. Oh yeah. Something gets stolen. We had a wacky story that I'll tell you next week. This is how I keep it coming back. One of my better stories. So, always tell your people when you're listing the home, and we have another form, I think we went through it, the valuables. Put your money away, put your guns away, put your prescription drugs away. Anything of value, put it, and I shouldn't say just prescription drugs, because they may not have drugs that are prescription.
Drugs in general.
Just tell them to put their drugs away. And I'll joke about it, legal and illegal, just put them away. And, put your valuables away. That doesn't mean put the family china away. I mean, it's something that somebody can walk by and go like this
And swipe right
and
behind,
didn't even
nobody
see it.
noticed.
Right. Okay, so you want to make sure you're clear on that.
Shut house with a grow room.
Was that?
Shut house with a grow room in the basement.
What's that?
I have to.
They're growing their weed.
Yeah.
Oh,
marijuana plants.
I had it, this is even, well, that's becoming more and more common now.
Yes.
And does that have to be disclosed? I don't know. We had a guy in Royal Oak when I used to oversee both offices. And he goes, I've got a real issue here. He goes, I think this house used to be a meth lab. I'm going, what? He goes, I'm pretty sure this thing was a meth lab. And I'm going, oh my God. He goes, what do I have to disclose? I'm going, hell, I don't know. And those things are highly flammable and everything else. I'm going, let's just stay away from that one. We don't need that listing quite that bad.
Right, yeah, so definitely.
All right, lockbox. Now, we've talked about lockbox prior on a different form, okay? Now, you guys are jumping in the middle of this, but the realtor broker is or is not authorized to attach a lockbox to be used for the purpose of storing keys that provide access to the property by authorized persons. Seller acknowledges that the lockbox is not a security system, and agrees to release and hold harmless the broker and any other agents or sub-agents the broker for any liability whatsoever arising from the use of the lockbox, provided to access the property. They're going to go, somebody may ask you, what do you mean a lockbox? Aren't you going to be here, Dave, for my showings? What do you say?
Yes, but I'm not gonna be there 24/7.
You don't even want to say that. You don't even want to give them the hint that you're going to say you're going to be
I
there.
have full faith in the other professionals.
Yeah, I'm not. My job is not to make sure. Market your home.
Right.
Okay. Well, you're not going to be there. Isn't that what I'm paying you? No. Hopefully, your seller is going to be a buyer. And the reason I say that is it's then very easy to say, when we go out and look at homes, you want to be able to look at them strictly with me. You don't want the other broker there, correct? Yes. So you can see why I'm not going to be at your showings.
Right.
That makes it a lot easier to explain it.
Is it common, maybe I shouldn't ask this on camera. Is it?
Go ahead. This is a safe haven. What stays in the train, what's
No,
set
I
in the
just
train
want to know,
stays in the
like,
train.
obviously I'm the newest, so I want to know if, like, I had a showing, I was going to show some homes yesterday, my buyers, I did show them a few. One of them, I got the clear, show it, got the code and everything, and then literally we were 5 minutes away from the house, and I get oh, we're in contract, can't show it.
That happens a lot.
Does it?
Oh, yeah.
And then,
Or worse
so
is,
then my other one, to one of the other properties I wanted to look at, the listing agent would not let me show it without her being there. And I was like, my clients don't feel comfortable with that.
well, and again, choose your battles wisely.
That's why
If
I
she's
let it
dumb
go,
enough to
but-
go to the showing,
Right.
show it.
Okay.
I mean,
I didn't know
now,
how
on
common
some
this-
really high-end homes, you might get that.
Right. This
Okay?
was not.
Now, was or wasn't?
It was not. It was
Okay.
$130,000.
I mean, if I'm an agent, guess what? She didn't do a good enough job explaining to her client. That's not how the process works. And just to tease her too, is high-end homes and showings will be part of my story next week. Market, upon seller's written acceptance of the terms to any offer to purchase agreement, contract of sale, or equivalent, the broker shall not to continue to market the property nor present any other offers received at the time of acceptance. When I got into the business, you still had to keep presenting offers up until the day of closing. Now, it doesn't mean you could change and accept a different offer, but you just had to present it. Now, which is the dumbest thing in the world. Because you accept an offer for $100,000 on your $100,000 home, and all of a sudden I come back to you after your client's already agreed to it, hey, I got an offer for $110 for you. Is your client going to be happy with you? No, not at all. So that does not need to be done anymore. Okay? One more thing on that. I am a firm believer of not taking backup offers. If you accept an offer, and in that scenario, you're on your way to show it. Let's say you showed it, and this happens a lot,
Okay.
and your person's excited, you call the agent, and the agent goes, we've already got an offer accepted.
Right. So
Can you say, can I rate a backup offer? A lot of agents will say, sure. I'm going to tell you not to, because once an offer is written, what has to happen to that offer?
has to be presented.
Has to be presented. So again, you run into the same scenario.
Right.
We agreed to this, and if I tell you, do you think if I tell you guys to write a backup offer, you're going to write an offer that's probably above asking in most cases?
Okay.
You're just setting yourself up for a problem. What you say is, I'll tell you what, we've got an offer right now, let me take your name and number, and if something comes up, I'll call you. But make sure if something comes up, you call.
Right.
All right. Referral. The seller agrees to refer to broker all inquiries concerning the property in the period of this contract. What does that mean?
Someone contacts them directly.
Yeah, somebody knocks on their door. Can I see your house? And believe me, there's people that say, oh yeah, sure, come on in. No, the answer is no, but I'll tell you what, why don't you give me your name and number and I'll have my agent call you. Citizen, is the seller a U.S. citizen? Do they have to be a U.S. citizen?
No, there's a form though.
No, you don't have to be a citizen. There's different tax ramifications if you're not when you're selling. Heirs. The contract shall bind the heirs, personal representatives, administrators, executors, assignees, and successors of the respective parties. Which to me is kind of a wacky thing, and I'm surprised that's still in there, but it wasn't me putting that in there. Means if I have the house listed and it hasn't sold, and I die, and Dave's my personal representative, or he's got to continue the contract,
Oh,
which is pretty dumb. Whatever. This is a big one. Non-discrimination. It is agreed by the broker and seller that discrimination because of race, religion, color, national origin, sex, marital status, age, height, weight, or physical or mental disability, or familial status with the subject property, in bold and capitalized, is
Right.
prohibited. You think that's an important one? I think that's the
Yeah.
only thing, oh no, maybe not. If you get into a situation and somebody starts talking stupid
right.
about any of those things, run, do not walk. Okay? Get out of the contract. Because your client can get you in a world of hurt real quick. You guys are, believe me, you guys are capable of getting yourself in a world of hurt. You don't need anybody else telling you that. Information, seller agrees to provide broker or buyer with all information required by law. In other words, seller's disclosures. You've got to provide them to the buyer. Lead-based paint disclosure, you've got to provide it. Marketable title. This is on here a second time. The seller represents and warns that they are the exclusive holders of the interest to be conveyed hereunder, or they are the duly authorized agents of the holder of said interest, are specifically empowered to enter into this contract and convey the interest set forth. Believe me, there's times where people list the house, and it comes right down to the closing and title works
They're
pulled,
not,
and they're not the right person. Okay? Not a good scenario. Kidoki, binding contract. The seller contract. This contract shall be binding upon execution of seller, sellers, and broker, or the agents of the broker. So, once it's signed, it's a binding contract. Other, the seller agrees to pay the broker an administrative fee of $295 upon consummation of the sale. I think if we talk about that anywhere else on the listing. But again, if you say the seller agrees to pay the broker an administrative fee of $295 upon confirmation of the sale, and you pause, you're giving them a license to question you. You know, just go through it. And, you know, I always bring it up prior to that because I don't want that to necessarily be the last thing that's in their head. You know, I'll say, you know, when I'm going over a seller's net or whatever, and you probably are going over a seller's net prior to this, you've already explained it. So when you come to this, is all you're saying is, do you remember we talked about the admin fee of $295? And they're going to say yes. End of story. They sign it, you sign it, life is good, you go sell the house, you get paid. Go buy something new and start all over again. Yes?
Do we ask for proof of homeowner's insurance when we're listing?
Homeowner's insurance?
Yeah.
No, I've never done that.
Okay, when I had my old job, we got a call from a realtor who used to refer us a lot of work that we had to replace kitchen ceiling. Because during the inspection, the bathtub plumbing failed when they filled up the tub and tried draining it, which obviously dumped gallons upon gallons of water into the kitchen ceiling, and, you know, it just went all over the place.
And that happens a lot.
Well, the seller stupidly thought, oh, well, we accepted an offer, this thing's done, we don't need homeowner's insurance. So they then canceled their policy, allegedly. I mean, this is all coming from third party.
Yeah.
So it was a big problem.
It was a big mess.
Yeah, it was a big mess for everybody involved trying to figure out, 'cause, you know, it's not exactly a cheap
Who's
job.
responsible, yeah. Well, I would tell people that keep your homeowner's insurance in place until after you close. So, anybody have any questions on today? They do have to.
I have a question I want to ask you after that.
All right, well then you gotta do it right now, because I gotta get out of here.
No, after that's.
Oh, is that turned off?
I have a question.